The reading this morning is entitled, When All the People, by Motzi. When all the people of the world love, then the strong will not overpower the weak. The many will not oppress the few. The wealthy will not mock the poor. The honored will not disdain the humble. The cunning will not deceive the simple.
Good morning, friends. Good morning. I begin today with 3 disclaimers, and I'm going to first switch to my middle distance glasses from my reading glasses. There we go. First of all, this isn't the first time Kurt Vonnegut has been the subject of a talk in a Unitarian church. If you Google something like Kurt Vonnegut and his beliefs, or was Kurt Vonnegut a Unitarian, you will find references to plenty of previous sermons. UU minister Barbara Lambert Hale wrote a sermon called What I Have Learned from the 14 Kurt Vonnegut books I have read. And I think I've read more than that, but I'm not going to try to top the good Reverend today. My second disclaimer is, if you have read Vonnegut and your opinions about his meanings differ from mine, please understand that these are only my humble reactions, and I'm not trying to present myself as an expert. And third, if you've never read Vonnegut, my analysis is 100% spot on, and you can take it as gospel. Where do you want it? Is that all right? No. Vonnegut's philosophy touches all the principles we covenant as UUs, but especially the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And just so we all start on the same page, a bit of biographical information. Vonnegut was born in Indianapolis in 1922 and died in 2007 after taking a tumble on the steps of his Manhattan brownstone. He often spoke fondly of his Indiana roots. Indianapolis and Shortridge High School are mentioned many times in many of his books. His first novel, Player Piano, was published in 1952, and he continued writing novels and short stories for over 50 years. Vonnegut was a soldier in Europe during World War II and was captured during the Battle of the Bulge. He was held prisoner in a basement slaughterhouse in Dresden, Germany, a beautiful city of little significant military value. Between February 13th and 15th, 1945, Allied bombers dropped almost 4,000 tons of incendiary and explosive bombs on Dresden. The resulting firestorm killed over 25,000 civilians. Vonnegut was profoundly affected by witnessing this and wrote about it in his most famous novel, Slaughterhouse-Five, published in 1969. A few weeks ago, I rewatched an episode of Austin City Limits titled The Best of John Prine. It features 12 performances spanning 40 years. I reflected on how lucky I was that throughout my adulthood, he was bringing creative, meaningful, and oftentimes humorous songs to my life that enriched me. And it struck me at that moment that I'd also had the same great fortune with Kurt Vonnegut. His first book was published the year before I was born, and his last work was released less than 20 years ago. Throughout that time, every few years, I could dive into another novel and experience his signature mixture of wild creativity, silly humor, and deep meaning. And without knowing it, he was preparing me to comfortably fit in as a Unitarian Universalist myself. Vonnegut occasionally attended Unitarian churches, but I could find no evidence that he ever signed the book. He addressed the UUA General Assembly and spoke a number of times at Unitarian services in Indianapolis and other cities. He once said, "In order not to seem spiritually inept to strangers trying to get a fix on me, I sometimes say I'm a Unitarian Universalist." So that denomination claims me as their own. His great-grandfather, Clemens Vonnegut, founded the Freethinkers Society of Indianapolis. And in addition to being freethinkers, his grandfather and his father were also Unitarians. They both were architects, and his father designed a Unitarian church building in Indianapolis. Vonnegut interpreted their Unitarianism too as a kind of obligatory religious identification. He said of his father, he had to have a religion because nobody wants to deal with a guy who hasn't anything, who has no religion, which means he's just a wild man. So father said he was Unitarian. That was okay, you had to be something. And like his father and grandfather, Vonnegut was a humanist. In his 1997 novel, Timequake, he explains, humanists try to behave decently and honorably without any expectation of rewards or punishments in an afterlife. The creator of the universe has been to us unknowable so far. We serve as well as we can the highest abstraction of which we have some understanding, which is our community. He succeeded Isaac Asimov as the honorary president of the American Humanist Association. Of speaking at Asimov's Humanist Association Memorial Service, he writes, "I said, Isaac is up in heaven now. That was the funniest thing I could have said to an audience of humanists. I rolled them in the aisles. When I myself am dead, God forbid, I hope some wag will say about me, he's up in heaven now." It's easy to make the mistaken judgment that because Vonnegut himself was an atheist, he therefore despised religions rooted in belief in a god or gods. This idea is supported in his 1963 book, Cat's Cradle, in which he created an entire religion called Bokononism, complete with extensive writings and rituals. The contradictory and nonsensical rhythms of this religion certainly give the impression that religion itself is something belonging only to the irrational. And in the end, even Bokonon himself rejects God. What infuriated Vonnegut the most was when religion was used to justify war. In Slaughterhouse 5, he directs his rage at a murderous, supernatural Christianity that allows humankind to rationalize butchery in the name of God and absolves people from guilt for even the most vicious acts of barbarism. However, an overriding theme of Vonnegut's novels, as well as his short stories and letters, is that life is so difficult and unfair, filled with trials and loss, that each person should be allowed to find comfort in any creed or belief system that does not harm others. In Timequake, he writes, "My great war buddy, Bernard V. O'Hare, now dead, lost his faith as a Roman Catholic during World War II. I didn't like that. I thought that was too much to lose. I did not like it because I liked him so much." Vonnegut described himself as a Christ-loving agnostic. He was a big fan of the Sermon on the Mount, saying about it, "I am enchanted by the Sermon on the Mount. Being merciful, it seems to me, is the only good idea we've received so far. Perhaps we will get another idea that good by and by, and then we will have two good ideas." In his book of essays, The Man Without a Country, Vonnegut wrote, "For some reason, the most vocal Christians among us never mention the Beatitudes, but often with tears in their eyes, they demand that the 10 Commandments be posted in public buildings. And of course, that's Moses, not Jesus. I haven't heard one of them demand that the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, be posted anywhere." I reread the Beatitudes the other day. The one I remember most has always been, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." This was also Vonnegut's favorite. As I reread the Beatitudes, I was struck with how many of them focus on the afterlife. And while Vonnegut didn't believe in the existence of an afterlife, he was perfectly willing to accept, because life can be so cruel and hard, the comfort brought by this belief is not to be disrespected or denigrated. In a 1999 commencement address, he said, Jesus' greatest legacy to us, in my humble opinion, consists of only 12 words. They are the antidote to the Code of Hammurabi, a formula almost as compact as Albert Einstein's E equals mc squared. Jesus of Nazareth told us to say these 12 words when we prayed. "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." And for those 12 words alone, he deserves to be called the Prince of Peace. I came from an extended family of Lutheran ministers and parochial school teachers. And when I told my parents that I didn't believe in God any longer, they were devastated, understandably. And I remember my father saying, "I must think him a fool for dedicating his entire life to God." I think Kurt Vonnegut had a part in allowing me to honestly answer that I felt his pursuit of his truth was both noble and worthwhile, a UU value that I hold to this day. Vonnegut was an unapologetic socialist. He was an admirer of Eugene Debs and dedicated his 1990 book, Hocus Pocus, to him. In his introduction to his book, he features Debs' quote, "While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free." He felt this quote was a worthy echo of the Sermon on the Mount. In Timequake, which was here, he writes, "For Christ's sake, let's help more of our frightened people get through this thing, whatever it is. Why throw money at problems? That's what money is for. Should the nation's wealth be redistributed? It has been and continues to be redistributed to a few people in a manner strikingly unhelpful. We have faithless custodians of capital making themselves multimillionaires and multi-billionaires while playing beanbag with money better spent on creating meaningful jobs and training people to fill them, and raising our young and retiring our old in surroundings of respect and safety." Vonnegut's first book, Player Piano, published in 1952, is a tale of an America where machines do all the work, including repairing themselves. There's a small, elite upper class of engineers, managers, and politicians, but all others have no real purpose in life. Rereading it this summer, I was struck that Vonnegut in 1952 had predicted Donald Trump. Things are ripe for a phony messiah, and when he comes, it's sure to be a bloody business. Sooner or later, someone's going to catch the imagination of these people with some new magic. At the bottom of it will be a promise of regaining the feeling of participation, the feeling of being needed on earth, hell, dignity. The story progresses, as one member of the elite class senses that a system that robs humans of their self-worth is fundamentally flawed. He must sacrifice everything to change it, to restore a system where humanity is truly valued. This validation of the inherent worth and dignity of every person is a theme that will continue throughout all of his later books. A couple of final thoughts. We use the word love a lot. To some, we're known as the Love Church. Vonnegut rarely wrote specifically about love, and in his 1959 book, The Sirens of Titans, he wrote, "A purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved." I believe his infrequent reference to love was because he felt love was far better served by treating others with decency, kindness, and especially forgiveness, rather than simply saying, "I love my fellow man." And so I return to his words, which Dodie read as our chalice was lit today, Kurt's baptismal blessing, words that have guided me for many years, even as I have failed them far too many times. Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. It's round and wet and crowded. At the outside, babies, you'll have about 100 years here. There's only one rule I know of, babies. God damn it, you've got to be kind.